Hi, Lexi Daly here with this week's episode of Make It Monday for Paper Tray Ink. Today, I'm going to challenge you to use your smallest stamps. So when I was looking back through some of my cards to come up with an idea for Make It Monday this week, I came across several cards on which I use small stamps, usually in repetition or in a size repetition. So all of these happen to be using Moments inked images, but there are so many of our sets that have tiny filler images that really can stand on their own in repetition or in other ways. And repetition is mostly what I'm looking at today. So for starters, this is a card where it's not the same image repetitively, but it's all images that relate to each other and stamped next to each other, similarly to how a repetitive stamping would be, but all the same size. They're all exercise related to create a You Can Do It card. Next is 100% repetition with a coffee cup. But first, coffee, lots of coffee. So I really wanted to emphasize the lots of coffee with many cups. And these I stamped and cut, and I grounded them with a shadow stamp or a block stamp. And then this one, which is similar to what I'm going to make today, where I used a small icon and cut it out with a small punch, and then I have them repetitively on the card as the focal point or the focal image in a group of 3. So this is kind of the idea I'm going with today. And again, I'm going to use one of the images from Everyday Symbols. I'm going to use the telephone from Moments Inked Everyday Symbols. And so let's just get started making the card. When you're stamping repetitively, it's a good idea sometimes to do odd numbers. I tend to stick with 3s, although I have to say that I don't always follow that rule. Sometimes if 4 looks better, then I go with 4, and really it kind of depends on the size of the card. And I want these to pop, and my daughter used to be so in love with her yellow old-fashioned phone, so I kind of stick with yellow a lot of times when I'm doing an old-fashioned rotary phone. Out of habit, also because yellow is my favorite color. But I'm just stamping 3 of these and coloring them, and then I'm going to punch them. All right, so now I have 3 telephones. And the next tip I have for using tiny images is actually going with a smaller card. Although none of the cards I showed you in the beginning were smaller, I do tend to use smaller cards more often than not. I think going back to the original inspiration piece, the sentiment was actually had a pretty good presence on the card, so it lent itself to this bigger size. But for today's, I think my sentiment ended up being a little smaller, so I really liked the smaller card format. And this one is 5 by 3.5. 4-bar card, fits in those smaller envelopes. It's just a size I love a lot, and I probably make as many of this size as I do the standard card size. So for my sentiment, of course, to go with the telephones, I'm going to use Hello Friend, one of my favorite sentiments that I'm sure you see me do often. And I want to pop up my phones just to give them a little added interest. So we're going to add a little foam tape to the back of them. And then I'll just do my simple layout. Okay, before I place down my little 3 images on such a clean and simple card, placement is really important to me. I want to get it as straight as possible since there's not a whole lot of distractions otherwise. So it looks like I have them pretty straight there, but I am going to use a ruler on my graph paper to help line them up. So first I line up my card, and then I can line up my ruler on the graph paper as well. And I'm going to move it up slightly. My 3 images and the sentiment on this card make basically a lower stripe on the card. Kind of a cohesive focal point together. And while I am trying to get it as precise as possible, for me, precise as possible is still a little bit of eyeballing it. Mostly I want the bottom edge and the general spacing to be, the bottom edge to be straight and the general spacing to be somewhat uniform. Now, I'm not pressing them very hard in case I need to lift them up and move them. That's another little trick. And when I am working with small images, I do tend to like larger sentiments. You know, big words, big die cuts, big stamped words, things like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I can press them down. And there you have it. A quick and easy, clean and simple layout that's easy to repeat with different images and different sentiments. You know, and it's just a really good go-to clean and simple layout. One of my favorites anyway. So just to remind you of some of the others, here was the original inspiration piece, a bigger card because of the way the sentiment worked out. Here I've still done this similar kind of stripe across the card layout, more images here, and still I went with an odd number, although honestly I will break that rule from time to time depending on the images and the layouts of the card. And then here's one with images of the same size stamped repetitively, just not the same image. All images on a theme. Now it's your turn. Grab your smallest stamps and head on over to Nicole's blog to link up and play along. I can't wait to see what you create. Thanks for watching. This has been Lexi Daly for Paper Tray Inc. Bye.